existence of the Gaia consciousness that holds the seeds. Consequently, you should believe in the correct principle of conditioned arising as the continuity of cause and effect as taught by the Mahayana. 19. Cessation of the store consciousness from beginningless time. This consciousness has evolved like a stream. At what point is it utterly abandoned? It is abandoned in the state of ARHATSHIP. Arhats are saints at the time when they terminate the obstacle of the passions utterly. They are said to abandon Alaya consciousness, because at that time, the coarse and heavy class of passions is forever removed. The Arhat refers to those of all three vehicles who have progressed beyond the stage of learning. They are so called because they have slain the enemies who are the passions, because they are deserving of receiving the world's special veneration, and because never again will they experience birth and death by allotment, due to karma. How do we know that this is so? Because some commentators, quoting the Viniscayasamgraha, say, Arhats, pratvekabuddhas, and Tathagatas are not provided with an Alaya consciousness. In the Abhidharmasamuccaya it says, at the moment the bodhisattva attains bodhi, he suddenly cuts off the passions and the obstacle to that which is to be known and becomes an Arhat and a Tathagata. But if this is so, the seeds of the passions are still not utterly destroyed, and therefore they are not Arhats. They must be provided with Alaya consciousness. But, it is asked, why does the Viniscayasamgraha say that the non-regressing bodhisattva is not provided with an Alaya consciousness? Because it says that those who have progressed beyond learning in the two, non-Mahayana, vehicles have a change of heart and turn toward great awakening, and because they do so they never regress or arouse the obstacle of passions. That is, they are called non-regressing bodhisattvas, and are not provided with alava consciousnesses. They are categorized as arhats, so these passages do not contradict our interpretation.
Also, according to Dharmapala, in bodhisattvas from the late stage of bodhisattvas, named immovable on, the passions are never again active, hence they are said to be non-regressing. They are also called non-regressing bodhisattvas, because they proceed effortlessly in the rapid stream of the Dharma. They are able to engender practice among all activities, and they evolve and progress from instant to instant. However, even though these bodhisattvas have not utterly terminated the seeds of the passions in the consciousness as retribution, when they are aware of their own consciousnesses, the view of self and self-love, etc., never again grasp the store consciousness as an inner self. As a consequence, this consciousness loses the name of Alaya for good, and therefore it is said that these bodhisattvas are not provided with Alaya consciousnesses. These bodhisattvas are what is meant by Arhats.
There is another interpretation, by Nanda, that says that from the very first stage on, the bodhisattva has realized the principle revealed by the twofold emptiness, and is therefore said to be non-regressing. He is also called that because he has acquired the two kinds of superior knowledge, he has eliminated the two heavy obstacles of discrimination, and he arouses various practices within a single activity. Even though he produces various passions in order to benefit other beings, there are no transgressions involved in these passions, and for that reason he is called a non-regressing bodhisattva. Even though the bodhisattva has not eliminated innate passions utterly, when he recognizes his own consciousness, the view of self and self-love never again grasps this consciousness as an inner self.
Consequently, it loses the name Alaya, and it is said that he is not provided with Alaya consciousness and that he is an Arhat. Therefore the Abhidharmasamuccaya says that even though the bodhisattva in the 10 stages has not forever exterminated all the passions, these passions are like poison that has been subdued by mantras and medicines, and so they do not give rise to transgressions associated with passions. He is called an Arhat because in all stages of the bodhisattva he is like an Arhat who has totally exterminated the passions. The two former masters reply to Nanda, this explanation is unreasonable. In the first 7 bodhisattva stages, there remain innate views of self and self-love that grasp the store consciousness as an inner self, so how can that consciousness lose its name of Gaia? Nanda replies, it can be said that the name of Alaya is lost if the views of self and self-love arising from discrimination never again attach to the store consciousness.
We reply that, in that case, the name must be abandoned in connection with stream winners, etc., who are still in the learning stage, and if you agree with that, it contradicts all the treatises. Nanda replies, Passions in the bodhisattva in the 10 stages are the result of true wisdom, so they are not transgressions. Stream winners and the like cannot have passions of this kind, so how can they be compared with bodhisattvas? We reply, even though passions generated in the 6th consciousness are the result of true wisdom and are not transgressions, still the 7th consciousness in its state of impurity spontaneously acts and grasps the store consciousness as a self, so how are these bodhisattvas not like stream winners? Consequently, we know that Nanda's interpretation is not correct. Now, because the Arhat totally and completely eliminates the gross and heavy class of passions in this 7th consciousness, he never again grasps the Alaya consciousness as an inner self. Consequently, this consciousness forever loses the name of Alaya, which is said to be abandoned, in Vasubandhu's verses. The Arhat does not abandon the whole substance of the 8th consciousness, for it must not be that at the moment when he is without a consciousness holding the seeds he enters nirvana without remainder.
20 names and types of the 8th consciousness. Even though all sentient beings are provided with an 8th consciousness, it has different names in accordance with the meaning. It may be called mind, because it accumulates seeds perfumed by various dharmas. It may be called adana, or maintaining consciousness, because it holds the seeds and material organs and prevents their destruction. It may be called support of the knowable, because it is the support of dharmas that are known, whether impure or pure. It may be called seed consciousness, because it universally holds mundane and supramundane SCCDS. These names are suitable to all states of spiritual development.
It is also called Alaya, because it stores all defiled dharmas and prevents their loss, and because views of self, self-love, etc., grasp the store as an inner self. This name, however, applies only to ordinary beings and learners, because those beyond the learning stage, and non-regressing bodhisattvas, are not attached to impure dharmas. It is also called consciousness as retribution, because it is the result, in the form of retribution, of good and bad action that attracts the cycle of death and rebirth. This name applies only to ordinary beings, to vechical saints, and bodhisattvas, because at the stage of a Tathagata there are no indeterminate dharmas in the form of retribution. Finally, it is called immaculate consciousness, which is extremely pure, because it is the support of unsoiled dharmas. This name only applies to consciousness in the stage of a Tathagata, because among bodhisattvas, saints of the 2 vehicles, and ordinary people, consciousness holds seeds and can be perfumed, and these people have not yet acquired an 8th consciousness that is purified, etc. As a scripture says, the immaculate consciousness of a Tathagata is the realm of purity and non-defilement, free of all obstacles, and corresponding to perfect mirror knowledge.
The name Alaya is extensively discussed in this treatise because its transgressions are serious and because it is the first to be abandoned. The substance of consciousness as retribution is abandoned by bodhisattvas as they are about to attain awakening and by disciples and pratvekabuddhas at the time they enter nirvana without remainder. At no time is immaculate consciousness abandoned, because there is no time when there is an end to benefiting beings and making them happy. Terms such as mind, etc., apply generally to all states and should be used depending on the context. However, generally speaking, the 8th consciousness exists in 2 states. The first is its impure state, which is indeterminate.